Good morning or afternoon, students, depending on when you're viewing this. This is the podcast on cell respiration. So make sure you have your cell respiration notes out and ready to take notes. And keep in mind that you can use these notes on your quiz if allowed. And please stop this whenever you need more time to write, and so you can get your notes down. So previously we talked about photosynthesis, and photosynthesis are those organisms. If we look at the food chain here, or a food pyramid, the producers are the ones that get their energy from the sun. Those are the ones that go through photosynthesis. They take in the light energy and they convert that into chemical energy and glucose. And in order for us, to receive that energy, we need to take in that glucose and break that down into what's called ATP. So we're not talking about the producers here when we go through cell respiration. We're actually talking about the consumers. You can see here on this energy pyramid that we have consumers are the highest levels of the food pyramid. They get their energy from the producers. They take in the glucose or the sugar, their carbohydrates, which all mean the same thing, and they convert that stored energy in that molecule and convert it into ATP. And that's what we call cell respiration, that process of taking in oxygen and glucose and breaking it down into ATP. So if we look at your notes here, we have a certain word that we call consumers, and those are the heterotrophs. Remind you that photosynthesis, we have the autotrophs. Those are a fancy word for producers. The heterotrophs is the fancy word for consumers. So if we want to write that down, consumers, and if we want to write a definition, consumers are organisms that consume glucose and break it down to form ATP. ATP is that energy molecule, adenosine triphosphate. That's what we make when we eat food, and that's where we get our energy from. Remember, the sun is the ultimate source of energy on the planet, and the sun, all energy comes from the sun. And so the autotrophs convert that sunlight into chemical energy, and then we take that chemical energy and convert it into ATP. That's what a heterotroph does. So if we want to look at the definition of cell respiration, it's just much like photosynthesis, only the opposite. It's the process of breaking down glucose or chemical energy, it's the same thing, to form ATP. ATP is our money. Okay? This is our money. This is the molecule. This is the energy molecule for all life. All right, we bring ATP down for energy. So if we look at what consumers of these heterotrophs need, just think to yourself, if you need energy, what do you do? Well, you eat, of course. So that's going to be glucose. And you might see glucose as sugars, as carbs, carbohydrates, or as chemical energy. That's an I. They all mean the same thing. And you also need oxygen, O2. So you breathe. People say they breathe because they need to live, and that's true, but you really breathe for energy. Right? It's that oxygen is in your body to help convert this glucose right here into ATP. So the more oxygen you breathe, the more ATP you're going to make. And that's why when you're exercising, you start to breathe heavy. If you're outside running around the track or you're playing football or basketball, you are expending a lot of energy. And so in order for your body to make more ATP and use that for the energy, you need oxygen to do that. So the more you breathe, the more ATP you make. if you can't get enough oxygen, that's when your muscles start burning. And that's a whole other process called lactic acid fermentation. And we'll get to that at some other point. If you want to look at the equation here, it's the same thing as photosynthesis, only backwards. So you need glucose, you need oxygen, and I'm going to write in parentheses C6H12O6. And that gets converted into, you breathe out carbon dioxide, you make a little water, and the big one, ATP. Right, that is the big one. That's what we make. So again, looking at the sides of the equation, we have the products. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. We have the reactants on the left side of the equation, and we have the products on the right side of the equation. And if you look carefully, it's the same thing as photosynthesis, only in reverse. Only instead of light energy, we have ATP. So C6H12O6, take a look at this. The C and the O, that becomes the carbon dioxide that you breathe out. So every time you breathe out carbon dioxide, that is leftover food molecules. Right? That solid food you're taking in gets breathed out by carbon dioxide. The H's from the glucose that you breathe combine with the oxygen that you breathe in to make water. And all that energy that is stored in this glucose molecule makes ATP. So yes, you do make some water in this process when you're creating ATP. And again, that gas you're breathing out, that's just leftover food molecules. No wonder why your breath stinks, right? So keep that in mind. It's just the exact opposite of photosynthesis. Again, stop this if you need. But before we move on, I want to take a chance to, you should write a question. Right? This is a good review opportunity. Write a question here. So if you're looking at the word heterotroph, you could say, what is a heterotroph? You should be able to define this. Okay. Look at cell respiration. Define cell respiration. This is a good study tool. You fold it right down the side here, and now you have a nice study guide. So the whole point of taking notes is to make something that you can use to study from. Okay. I will let you write a question. I will let you write a question here, and I will let you write a question here. If you'd like to get full credit for your notes, you need to write those questions on the left-hand side. Again, you might want to stop yourself so you can go back and just quickly write a question, a review question. And as you're doing that, I'm going to erase this. Try again. There we go. And I'm going to scroll up. And the last thing is the mitochondria. And this is a cell organelle that we've had in the past, and this is where cell respiration takes place. This is the organelle where cell respiration takes place. Now, you learned last unit that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It converts glucose into energy, or ATP. Right, so just keep that in mind. Cell respiration is all about eating, breathing, and making ATP. All right, and that all happens in the mitochondria. Whenever you get a mitochondria question, we're talking about cell respiration and ATP. Or if you want to flip that around, if the question is talking about cell respiration or ATP, it is a mitochondria or cell respiration question. So the last bit of these notes, write your question. What is the mitochondria? What does the mitochondria do? Come up with your overview question. And down here, I'd like to write a summary. 2 to 3 sentences about cell respiration. If you would like your full points, make sure you have this in your notes. You're now finished with the notes for cell respiration. Make sure that you get everything complete so you get your points, and you have this available because Mr. Matthews might let you use this on your quiz.